less about the one funnel and more about the ecosystem, the ability to not have only one way to generate revenue in your business. I see so many people teaching this. Focus. Just focus on one thing is what they say. All these people that tell you to do 22 things at one time are stupid. Just focus on one thing. That is total bullshit, because guess what? Show me one company that sells one thing.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest today is Anthony Morrison. Anthony is a brilliant internet marketer who's made millions online, but most importantly, he's made it by teaching other people how to successfully make millions online, and not one of the scammy guru type ways of like, let me show you. And even though I've never done it, everything he's done, he's actually done. Everything he's taught, he's actually done before. Just an incredibly smart guy. Here's a guy who got into medical school and was studying to become a doctor, and then left in order to take care of his family and start the business, and grew it to millions of dollars. A lot of lessons in this one. A great conversation. Was super excited to have him on. Check it out. Anthony, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, man. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about some marketing, business, and whatever you want from me. Open book.
I mean, it's funny. You and I were talking offline. Like, you're the first sibling duo I've had on the show, so it's interesting. So I'm going to start with the hard question first: of who's smarter, you or Adrian? I'm kidding. You don't even have to answer that.
I think we have our. I will though. I think we have our strengths. I think Adrian's. Adrian's really good at things that I'm not good at, and I'm really good at things that he's not good at. And I think that's how we've managed to navigate the whole, working together, being brothers, living next door to each other, all of these things. I think there's certainly some things that I can't do that he's really good at, and vice versa. So I would say, I might have a slight edge, but.
See, it's funny. I was just going to say you gave me a cop-out answer, but I was going to let the listeners know that he's actually right next to you. So
yeah, he's right next to me, but I just went ahead and said maybe a slight edge.
Yeah. So I was just kidding. So what's your entrepreneurial background? I mean, how'd you become like the internet marketing guy go-to and one of the leaders in this industry?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I started and wasn't really interested in internet marketing. I was actually going to medical school. That was my thing, was wanted to be a doctor. And then, over I would say kind of more kind of life's path, life's situations are what kind of pushed me in this direction. I mean, when I was in college, really just hammered with schoolwork, trying to be a doctor and get to med school and do all these, tried to do everything faster than you're supposed to, by the way. So I would take like twice as many classes, go work in the hospitals. Like, I was really committed to speed. I always say money like speed, right? Like, I mean, nobody moves slowly to make money. Like, you want to be a doctor, and you can take 6 years to do it, or you can take 3, right? The faster you do it, the faster you make money. And so I've always had that mentality. So I was gung ho. And then, oddly enough, my senior year in high school, I taught my dad day trading on, like, this was a thing, this was relatively new 15 years ago, 16, gosh, maybe even 20 years ago. Now at this point, it was about 20. To be able to trade online. Usually, in the old days, I mean, people listening to this probably don't even remember this, you just have to call like your broker and make trades. And so when this online trading came out, I was day trading with my dad's money. He had owned apartment complexes, sold them, retired, 20 years ago, had, $1.5 million, buyout. And that was back then just plenty of money, for somebody to just retire. And so that's what he did. And, but he started wanting to try to make some money. And so I started doing day trading with him. And then, we slowly were buying and selling and making a little bit of money here and there, making his money grow over time. And when I went to college, he had kind of continued that trend, of day trading, but he slowed it down a little bit because I wasn't there. And I'd always told him, I said, Dad, with day trading, you always sell. You never hold overnight. Like, it doesn't matter what you're down. Like, there's parameters, right? And my dad was never really good at working within parameters, making fast decisions, right? He's like a slow learner, slow pace. And one night or one day he bought, we would trade big chunks. He bought a little over $1 million worth of WorldCom stock, and it dropped right when he bought it. And it dropped, like 30 cents or so. It dropped a decent amount. And instead of selling it, he held it. Well, he held it, and that night they announced a accounting scandal. They froze the stock. The next morning he woke up, it was worth nothing. So he could have lost 30 grand. Instead, he lost like 1.2 million, and pretty much his whole life savings just like that. One wrong move, one hesitation, one something. And so that obviously kind of put our whole family into a tailspin, because my dad didn't even have a high school education. He was poor. He used to tell me stories about chasing the milk truck when he was 8, and they would feel sorry for him, so they'd give him a carton of chocolate milk. He was dirt poor. And so he started working when he was, 12, 13 years old to make money for their family. So he was working to make money to help his family as well. So he wasn't able to go to college and finish high school and all of those things. And so here he sat, mid 60s, no education, old. So people don't want to hire old people. We found that out real fast. We learned that quickly, and didn't have any money, and had a family, three kids. I was in a private school. And so our lives changed pretty quickly. Within 24 hours, we went from never having understood what it meant to worry about money to understanding what it meant to worry about money on a much higher level. And so I initially said, hey, look, I'll just quit school and get a job and try to, do something to help them at least pay for their house. My dad would kick my ass. He said, no, you will finish. And no matter what happens, you will finish school. So I knew he wasn't gonna let me do that. So I started looking at the internet, and I said, man, how can I make money on this internet thing? What can I do? And that's really what pushed me into this direction. I built my first internet business just guessing my way through it, totally and completely guessing my way through it. And it quickly started doing, $5, $10, $15,000 a month, and then it ran all the way up to $250,000 a month. And I was 22, and my dad was just like, he literally sat me down and asked me if I was selling drugs on the internet, because he really, he's an older person. He didn't understand the internet, and we were just making so much money from it. He couldn't fathom it, and that's what got me my start. And then it was from there, just, I live in a small town. People started, my college roommate and buddies would see me, making all this money and working, and know what I'm doing. So I'd start and teach them. Then my brother, he's like, man, I want to make money like that. Like, how the heck are you doing that? So I start teaching him. And that's what really led me into teaching, is I was teaching so organically, just teaching so many people here. I was like, well, I should just teach people all over the country. This is great. And that's really what got me started in the education side of our business.
But you're not Dr. Anthony Morrison.
No. And my dad, even in his dying days, was saying, just you've made enough money, just go back to school. he just wanted me to be a doctor so bad. And it blows my mind, because, and it's part of the things, and it's one of the things that I tell a lot of people. It's like, sometimes your parents are your biggest obstacle, because they're from a different generation. If you're in your 20s or 30s right now, and you want to do something any different, like your parents grew up in a generation where, like my dad said, if you want to make money and you want to always be secure, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer, because that's what people do that are rich, right? Well, yeah, maybe 30, 40 years ago, but now they buy Bitcoin, and they start up, apps like Clubhouse, like, they're not doctors. Doctors are not the wealthiest people in this country, not even by a long shot. Neither are attorneys, right?
So let me ask you. That's a great point. And my parents were like that too. My mother came, as an immigrant. My father was born here, but I always call it immigrant mentality, in the sense that they had to get a job and be a professional in order to make money. And like school matters, and that's what matters more. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, but do well in school. And now we're seeing that shift in that. So what advice do you have for the listeners on how do you handle parents who are telling you to do something when it's a completely different world out there?
Yeah. I think that you have to do really, I mean, look, I can only teach it the way I did it. Um, I just told my dad, hey, here's what I'm doing. And, I understand that you don't understand this, but it's what I feel like is in my best interest. It's what I feel like I should do. And, ultimately, you can't do things just because your parents want you to do it. That's um, maybe when you're 13, 14, got to mind mom and dad. But when you're 18, 19, 20, and you're paving like the path for the next, 60 years of your life, you can't let the your parents' desires determine the path you're going to live long after they're gone, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And so for me, I was just always confident in my decisions, and I think confidence matters too. I think if you approach your parents and you're kind of, I think this is kind of what I want to do. I'm not really sure, that kind of stuff. Well, of course, parents are always going to want to push you in a direction that they know is going to work, right? Like they know if you can be a doctor, if you can be a lawyer, if you can do, whatever, you're always going to be secure. And I think for people who, and maybe for some people that just kind of don't have maybe the drive or the entrepreneurial mindset and determination, right? That works. But if you find yourself in the position and in the situation where you feel like you want more, you feel like you want to wake up every day and not be stuck with a ceiling over your head of this is how much money I can make, or this is what I have to do, or this is what my day has to look like, then you've got to break the mold, right? And that's what a lot of people do. I mean, that's what happens over generations, right? Like our parents broke the mold for certain situations and certain things, right? um and
And
you
li-
can't
and like you said, your parents and your friends are always the last people to come around,
always.
right? And
And
but they will always say that they supported you the longest, right?
of course, oh yeah, my
Or
dad to this day does. Well, he always said I always believed in him, but he literally wanted to kill me.
yeah.
Now my dad was always my biggest fan. There's no doubt about that. He never discouraged me from anything. I think more so he just wanted, he hated to see me give up on the doctor aspect of life, right? But he always encouraged everything I did from there on. Like once I made that choice and said, this is what I'm doing, like he was all in for it, but he would just always have those subtle remarks of, you've made enough money now. Why don't you go back to school and be a doctor? You've done enough of that. Why don't you go be a doctor? Why don't you be the president? I mean,
See, it's
always,
amazing. It had nothing to do with the money. It was just a
yeah,
status symbol for them to sit, for our parents to sit there and say, "Look at my son. He's a doctor. Look,
exactly.
it's their own wish
Right.
upon you."
And
Yeah.
look, some of that, I'm sure when I have kids one day, I'll probably feel the same way. But I think that in order to break trends and innovate and evolve, you have to be able to break the mold. I mean, because your parents are what, ultimately are going to kind of create that mold for you, right?
And you could
And
always have gone back, right? If it didn't work, you could have
sure.
gone back to school.
Yeah,
You
and
just
that's
may
what I
not
told
have
my
been
dad.
able to capitalize on the opportunity.
And that's what I told my dad. I'm like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back. Like you go back at 40, it
Yep.
doesn't matter how old you are, you go back and be a doctor. And so, you know, the idea that you're stuck with in this one path is just not true. You can always bounce, right? But I always say, try what, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I'm not a big promoter of college. I think college is a waste of time and money, personally,
Yep.
unless you're going to do a specific thing. If you want to be a doctor and that's what you truly want to be, well, then you need to go to your butt to school, right? You got to learn. Before you operate on me, I need you to learn. If you're going to be an attorney, there's stuff you got to know to be an attorney. If you're going to be an engineer, there's things you got to know to be an engineer. But if you're going to get your liberal arts degree, you know, you know, you're just wasting your money, because there's no specialization to that other than you can walk into a business and say, hey, look, I got this degree. What that degree tells business owners nowadays is you spent 4 years partying, going to football games, having a damn good time, and now you're ready to be
Oh,
possible.
my poli sci degree is worth a lot of money. Let me
I
tell you.
mean, I mean, look, I have a science degree. What the heck am I
Yeah.
going to do? All I can do with that is teach. I have a bachelor of science. I can teach. You
So
know,
I want to get tactical, and I want to pick your brain because you're here, but I have to ask you. So many times we hear don't work with family, but you work so closely with your brother, and I mean, you guys built houses next to each other. You
Yeah.
guys are super close with your mom, and I've seen the video where you bought her a car and you take care of. But the business side of things, how does that work? Like, how has that worked for you guys? And I mean, what advice do you have for people when it comes to working with family?
Uh, I mean, I think you gotta, first of all, my sister works for me. My dad worked in our business for the last 12 years, maybe 15, 12 years of his life. He worked with me. My good friend from sixth grade, who's basically family, works right in the other office, in the other room. I've kind of built a business around working with bucking the trend, right? Working with family, not strangers. And I think there's pros and cons. I mean, look, one of the pros is everyone around me I trust, right? And everyone around me has my best interest in mind at all points in time, which I like, right? I mean, that's a big thing for me. Some of the cons, obviously, is that things come up. I mean, situations happen where you got to get on to people or you got to get mad at people, and it's a little hard to separate, you know, you're my friend, but you're also my employee, or you're my friend, but you're also my business partner. And I think the way that I always approach that is I try to make a clear delineation between the two. Like, if I have to get on to somebody that works with me, like I'll sit them down and say, okay, now you're still my sister. I love you. I'm gonna buy you Christmas gifts, but this is not okay, And then I switch and I kind of remind them that we're still either family, friend, whatever, but then switch gears to, hey, here's the business side that's problematic, and it's not going to work for me to continue to do it this way. But ultimately, what I've found is that I probably haven't had to have that conversation 5 times in 12, 15 years. And I think it's because if you've got a good, I mean, look, everybody's family is different. We grew up really close. We grew up, doing things together, and we were always really, really close. And so for me, you know, I don't have people around me that are trying to piss me off, you know what I mean? And create problems. So it makes it so much less of an issue because we really just don't have those those problems that arise where you would say, oh my gosh, what do you do, because it's my family member, that I'm angry at. Everybody kind of pulls their own weight. I mean, Adrian and I get into it every once in a while, but I mean, I think that's normal. But we also get past it. We operate totally different too.
But then you remind him he's only in the game because of you, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
So
look, you got to respect your elders and your
and
mentor.
I brought you into this business.
Yes, like you are here because no,
Yeah.
like I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's funny. I think it's very important that you understand the people that you work with almost as well or better than they understand themselves, so that you can also not take some things so seriously or so um, you know create more of a logic-based approach to how you handle things than an emotional-based approach. For instance, Adrian operates totally different than me. He's I'm extremely dynamic in the fact that I can do 15 things at one time, and I can do them all very efficiently. Like that's the dynamic that goes on in my brain. Like I can be talking to you, but also be sending a text and also be thinking about the call that I'm going to do in an hour while writing a note over here that you never even know I'm writing, and probably also, monitoring stocks, right? Like I can do that and I'm fine with that. He can't. He is a one thing at a time person, you know what I mean? And so when I find myself frustrated that he hasn't done X, Y, or Z, that I've asked him to do, I always have to try to like revert back and remember, like, okay, like he only understands how to do one thing at a time really well. He doesn't operate the same way that I do. So it helps me to not get frustrated, And the same thing with him. When I'm asking him to do 52 things, right? And he's getting overwhelmed, he's like, I can only do one thing, and he knows it. He has to remember, Anthony, this is how Anthony's brain operates. And I think if you understand each other and how you operate, then you get less frustrated when things like that happen and when things like that occur throughout the week. And I think that's how we've handled it, so that we don't have like mega blow ups or anything like that.
Love that. So now let's get tactical. Funnels, right? Let's talk funnels.
Mhm.
You're the funnel king. What are the most important parts of a highly successful, revenue producing, profitable funnel?
Oh God, well, it depends on which funnel we're talking about. They all have different important parts. Look, here's what I've started teaching people more recently, which is something that we do, um, and have been doing for years, and that is, funnels are. I look at funnels like doors, right? So let's say that my office building is a food bank, and we want to feed as many people as we can. If we have one door and that one door opens up, and inside of that door you can get 80 pound bags of rice, right? And that's all you can get out of that door is 80-pound bags of rice. And we open the door. Well, first of all, you've limited the number of people that can get into this 10,000 square foot food bank. So only has one door open, right? And the second thing is you've limited the number of people you can even serve or help, because not everybody can pick up an 80-pound bag of rice, right? So you've got only a specific person there, a strong person, right? And one that happens to get to the front of the long line because there's only one way in. If you want to be super successful, what you want to do is have 50 doors, right? And all 50 of these doors need to open up to different types of things. Maybe one opens up to a bag of rice, and one opens up to canned goods, and one opens up to maybe just flour, and one opens up to bottled water, and so on and so forth. Now I've got 50 ways in to the food bank, right? The important part is, if this food's not free and we're selling this food, once somebody comes in through one of my 50 doors, right, I need to have pathways that lead them to some of the other products that are inside of my food bank without them leaving and having to come back in through another door, right? This is the ecosystem approach that we take and teach. Think of doorways as funnels, right? Many different funnels. Think of flour and corn and canned goods as offers, right? Whether it's your $5,000 offer that your company makes, which is like an 80-pound bag of flour. Not everybody can do it. And then, or it's your $7 a month offer, right? That's a can of corn that pretty much anybody can take advantage of, right? You want to bring people in through all these different funnels to all these different products. But once they buy one of these products, you want to be able to kind of take them down the assembly line, if you will, of all the other products that you have without them having to leave and come back in through another door, because that usually costs you money, marketing dollars. So what we build is ecosystems. When you come in through one of our funnels and you buy one of our products, more than likely, you're going to find yourself seeing, being exposed to, or being marketed, one of the other 25 to 30 different, trainings or educations or software products that we have. And so it's less about the one funnel and more about the ecosystem, the ability to not have only one way to generate revenue in your business. I see so many people teaching this. Just focus on one thing is what they say. All these people that tell you to do 22 things at one time are stupid. Just focus on one thing. That is total bullshit, because guess what? Show me one company that sells one thing that's worth anything. Does Apple only sell one thing? Did they only sell, but not even just one type of thing, right? Like one thing. Did they just sell this one iPhone? They won't sell the case for it because they focus on just one thing, right? Just that. Here's the reality. Oftentimes, I will end up going into Apple to buy a case and buy a new phone because I get caught up in their funnel and I see it and I'm like, man, I need a new phone. So I just buy a new phone. But I went in for the $7 case, right? The idea that you should just have one
I don't know
thing.
what Apple store you shop at, but I've never found a $7 case at Apple.
Well, yeah, maybe it's a $20 or a $70 case. In Apple's world, $7 is $70, I guess. So maybe it's $100 case. But then I'm like, man, I need a new phone, and I spent $1,500 on a phone that I didn't even need. Only reason I got it is because I saw it over there and it looked cool, and somebody told me it had some new feature on it. And so I'm like, damn, I buy that. And every time I go on Apple, I buy 5 things. I never just buy one. When you go to Walgreens to pick up your prescriptions, they don't just sell you the one prescription. No, you're going to buy chapstick and everything else that you have to walk right past all the vitamins to get to the point is that companies don't sell one thing. And yet there's people out here teaching people to create one funnel, just one, and sell the one thing. I think that's wrong. I think you hurt your business and the potential for your business. We create an ecosystem and a machine, and that machine is constantly promoting the different products that we have. So ultimately what I have to do is I can focus on buying traffic for just one product, but that traffic ends up getting exposed to 30 products. Now I've paid once, but I've presented 30 times instead of, what most people do, which is they run one offer until it dies, then they pick up another one, and then, they bounce like this,
Yeah,
and they're
so let's
constantly.
yeah, so let's talk about that because I think that's super, super important. Most people have a hard time even creating that one offer, right?
Mhm.
Let alone the 22, 25 other offers.
Right.
So, you know, a listener right now who's listening right now and has, a tremendous amount of knowledge, they have experience doing something they love. They want to figure out how to make money off of it. What's your advice? How do they start? Whether
So
it's getting over imposter syndrome, whether it's not trying to be another course guru out there because that has a negative stigma for a lot of people. How do they start?
I mean, the first thing I think that you do is you don't worry about stigmas. Like, stigmas don't pay your bills. What other people think doesn't pay your bills. Somebody's opinion of you doesn't pay your bills. Um, you know, in my world, like the Anthony world, I truly, truly, truly don't care what anybody thinks about me. As long as I go to bed at night knowing I've done the right thing today, I haven't done anything that I wouldn't do if my dad or my mom were sitting right next to me. If 52,000 people around the world have an issue with me, I don't care, right? And neither should you, because the one thing that you will find is that no matter what you do, no matter how great you do it, the second that you have any type of success, people start trying to tear you down, and that's just part of that's part of being an entrepreneur. That is part of being successful. Is people will try to tear you down. They will tell you how wrong you are, how bad you are, how stupid you are, all of these things, and you have to just realize that most of the time that is their own insecurities, that is their own issues within themselves that creates those thoughts, those comments. So for me, most importantly, if you want to start building your own offer and you're brand new, then the number one thing I would say is immediately prepare for people to try to tear you down. And immediately prepare mentally to not give a shit what anybody else thinks about you, and you'll go so much further than if you don't. And then I would look at, what do you know best? What's something you really understand? What's something what's something not this, what are you passionate about crap that you hear people talk about? Your passion. Well, what if I'm passionate about watching cars race on racetracks? Like, how the hell am I going to make any money with that? It's not about what you're passionate about. It's about what you know. It's about what you understand. It's about what you can confidently teach people. And it's amazing that people say, oh, I don't know anything, but yet it might be a mother of three, right? And I'm thinking, lady, do you know how many people like get on the internet and look for like how to make my child stop crying at night? What do I do if potty training isn't working? Like all of the millions of things that happen, right? How to be like a more confident and happy wife after children. Like, look these things up. Like, these are serious. Like, these are things that people are seriously looking for every single day that you may not think about as being knowledge, but you have to understand your life experience is an accumulation of knowledge. And so if you look at your life experiences, there's bound to be some pockets in there of things that you can create, and educate people on. So I would first say identify that. And then the second thing I would say is make a syllable. Imagine you are going to teach, this is what I did. Imagine you were going to teach your dad or your mom, whichever is relevant, how to do this. Draw out a syllabus of basically an outline of where would you start and what would that start look like and what would you do next. In other words, a logical approach to teaching this particular thing, right? So you make that syllabus, right? And then once you do that, now you've got an outline that you truly can work off of to film and to create content. What happens is a lot of times people say, I know all this, and they start just scattering it everywhere, right? And there's just shit everywhere. And people are just like, what do I do? You know, you have to take that very methodical, logical approach to what would I teach first? What do you need to understand first? And then move. And I think oftentimes we forget how to do that. But if we think about how we teach our parents things, especially those of us that have to teach them like how to use TV guides, like how to use apps on your, TV now, because it's not old school anymore, how to use the computer, how to use an iPhone, like there's a million things that you've probably taught either your parents or your grandparents, right? And when you start thinking when you get your brain set to that mentality of teaching someone who's super old, what happens is you start breaking things down into smaller steps and not these grand things. And it becomes a more granular education, which is necessary for people that don't know anything about what you're teaching. That's the first thing I would do, because without that done, you can't really sell anything, right? Like there is no funnel, no nothing. If you don't have the offer understood and what you're going to be selling, really and truly written down and understood.
If your mom's listening, I'm sure she'll be happy that you said old and not super dumb, right? Like talk as if you're talking to someone old and not dumb. So
Right. You
so
said
good choice,
older people.
good choice of words there.
Older, but I'm not going to say super dumb. Older people that have not grown up with the technology that we grew up with, their brains don't, you have to understand that your brain doesn't comprehend, like our brains work the way they work because of what we were exposed to. My friends' kids who had an iPad at 3, right, are going to understand the computer and how to use it and the technology at such a higher level.
I see it with my 2.5-year-old. He already knows how to swipe and get out of the YouTube video he wants to watch, not this one, and he swipes up.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you could swipe up from there and see the extra videos related to this.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, and wait till he's 15 or 20.
Yeah.
So far, they're going to understand and grasp technology and how it works so much better than you and I will, because they've been programming their brain to do it since they were 2, right? So you have to understand that, like older people, obviously we're not. My dad was around. There was not even any television when he was a kid, right? So like for him, the idea of watching TV on your phone is insane, So having to teach that to somebody who doesn't have that prior experience, and that's what you kind of want to do when you're teaching any of these types of courses. You want to go back to the level of they have no prior experience in their life with this. That way you get super granular and you teach it in a way that people can understand, you don't miss any steps.
You've helped a lot of people make money. You've made a lot of money, and you've also helped a bunch of people make money, which I think is important as well. What are the top 3 skills you've seen people need in order to be successful?
In our space, I think, I think that probably the number one thing is commitment. I don't even know if that's a skill as much as it is a mindset or a trait, personality trait, but one that can certainly be acquired. Commitment is key because, nothing happens fast in business. It doesn't matter really what anybody says. You're not going to start something today and be rich tomorrow. And contrary to what 99% of ads say, on the internet, this is not a logical thing. And so I think a lot of times people dabble, but they're not truly committed. Commitment means waking your butt up in the morning 3 hours early before you go to your day job so that you can work on your business. Commitment means skipping football on Sunday because it happens to be your only off day, right? To work on your business. Commitment means Friday nights, you're not out with your buddies and your friends and at the bar and movies. You're working on. Commitment means taking all of your you time and turning it into time for your business. If in fact you currently have a job, right, that's eating up, 40 hours a week, that's the type of commitment you need to make in order to be successful. So I would say commitment would be number one. And I would definitely say that being teachable, right, is the second skill that you just have to have. If you're constantly saying that, if you're constantly questioning, I think, what someone is teaching you, then you're probably not going to succeed. You have to buy into it. You have to be teachable. You have to be able to say, maybe that's not the way I think. Maybe that's not what I would do, but I haven't made $10 million doing this, and this person teaching me has. So I need to listen. I think leaving your ego at the door is important for all of us when we're learning um, any type of business, because you know human nature is we always think we're right. Reality is that most of the time we're not, and so we have to be able to separate that. So I think being teachable is very important, and I think one of the other skills that at least I have seen anyway to be extremely um, valuable to people is the ability to the ability and the lack of fear to network, right? So many people are so timid. You can see on Clubhouse, they get on Clubhouse, even some of the speakers, they bring them up and they mute. I don't want to chime in. Somebody might think I'm stupid. Like, being able to network, being able to put yourself around the people that are successful so that you can be successful, and not and to add to that, it's not just being able to network, and it's not just being able to uh, or being willing to get in the rooms with people and not be so worried about not fitting in. It's also the ability for you to not worry about being judged, right? Because we live in a world where people judge us 24/7. When I was 22, some idiot in it was Hawaii wrote some long blog post about what a terrible person I was, and I'd never even been to Hawaii. So, and this was when I was doing live events. I'm thinking, you don't even know me, like you how can you write all this stuff about me? And it sucks up so much of your time, and it also starts to make you question yourself and feel bad about yourself. So you have to be able to put that other people's opinions to the side and truly not care what people think about you, so that you're confident enough to network, right? I mean, imagine if you go into a room and I'm in that room and you want to ask me a question, but you're so damn scared at asking me a question that it might be a stupid question that you don't ask the question. How are you ever going to learn, right? You've got to be willing to ask the stupid questions. And I think if you're willing to ask the stupid questions, then you'll meet people, and those people will help you along the way.
Well, I think you need to be willing to ask, period. I think one of the biggest
Right,
reasons I see people not succeed is because they're afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to
right,
ask for, you know, doing a podcast, right? Like, you're afraid to ask that person, like, what if they say
right.
no? They're afraid to ask for the sale. I think a lot of the lack of success that people have come down from to just them not asking.
100%. Yeah, you've got to be willing, and you have, like you said, you have to be really okay with asking for help, asking for money, asking for advice. I mean, whatever it is, we live in a world where you need help to get where you're at. Very few people get there truly by themselves. And I would say there's one more thing that I don't have my chain on today that says self-made, but usually I have my chain on that says self-made, and a lot of people
You don't have the chain on for this podcast. Adrian didn't bring the flamethrower on the podcast. I mean, you guys are
yeah,
just, yeah.
just dumbing it down,
Yeah.
trying to old school, like, take the bling out, but the thing is like I wear this, and it's interesting, and I think it's an interesting show of how people's brains operate, and the difference between successful people and people that will never be successful is how they interpret. I honestly believe it is how they interpret my chain and the way that they react, because it's interesting. I put that chain on and I went. I went to get some pizza, just lunch one day, right after I put it on. I haven't had that chain 24 hours. And some dude walks up to me while I'm eating lunch by myself. He's like, "So what the hell makes you self-made?" Imagine just walking up to a random person and saying that, right? And I looked up at him, sitting down. I was like, it's probably not that important for me to share that with you. And I sat back, looked back down to him. He's like, "No, I want to know why you think it's okay to wear a self-made chain." I'm like, well, I'm either going to tell him or I'm going to punch him. So I should probably tell him. I'm less likely to go to jail. And so I said, well, and it happened to be a Sunday. And I said, well, let me ask you something, my friend. I said, what'd you do Friday night? And he said, well, I went out with my buddies and I had a beer. right? We went to a restaurant, we had beer. I said, cool, what'd you do Saturday? And he said, well, I played on my boat, and he gave me all these other things that he did. And I said, well, what are you doing today? And he's like, well, I went to church and now I'm going to go do all this. He gave me this whole list of stuff. And I said, well, you are the exact opposite of self-made. Like, you are literally the opposite of what I am. I said, because on Friday night, while you were drinking beer with your buddies, I sat down and I made myself do this. And I started outlining what I did Friday night as part of my business. And I said, on Saturday, I sat down and I did this. And I told him what I was doing. And I said, today, when I get done with this lunch, guess what I'm going home to do? This. I said, being self-made doesn't mean that I'm mega rich because nobody helped me and it's all me. I'm the best at everything. That's not what it means. What it means is I made myself do it. Because if you're an employee, right, you're not making yourself do anything. Your boss is. And if you don't do something, you got to answer to your boss. As an entrepreneur, nobody's making me get up in the morning and do anything. And if I don't do it, no one's going to fire me from me, right? So you have to be self-made to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to wake up in the morning and make the decisions that are best for your business and not the decisions that may be best for your lifestyle. Because I don't care what anybody says. When you're starting your business, you can't have this lifestyle business that people talk about where it's like, all I do is sit on my boat all day and, drink and party and money just flies in. That's bullshit. It doesn't work. It's not how it works. Like, you have to put in work. You have to make sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice your time, sacrifice experiences. Like, I didn't even have a college experience, nothing. I worked. I got out of class. I immediately sat my butt down at a computer. I worked till 3 a.m. I would wake up by 6 a.m. so that I could handle orders and things before class. And I would have my butt in class at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I literally slept 4 hours, right? And I did nothing but work. When I went on vacations, I was working because I was driven. I knew that every single moment that I wasn't working, there was somebody working to take my spot. And so I had to grind and I had to build. Now, you get to a point where you've got enough money, you've had enough success, you've built a machine for your business, and now you can take some of those luxuries. You can walk away from it for a little while, go on a vacation, live a little healthier, lifestyle, if you will, at least from a personal life perspective. But the idea that you can just sit on your butt, party and play and get rich is silly talk. It's just nuts, right? And also the idea that every entrepreneur is not self-made is a complete lie, because they all are, and they all have to be, because nobody's there telling them to do it. And I think that's important.
Love it. Going back to, I love that last part, but going back to the ask part, how important is it in an ad or even on a sales call to ask the right questions to qualify people? And what are the different type of questions between an online ad, like what you're qualifying, whether they're reading an ad or qualifying once they're on the phone call?
I think it's important to add, look, when we do ads, we ask, and obviously it's all dependent on the product, the price, everything. We're always trying to ask people questions. What we like to try to do, at least in our business, is eliminate the people that are going to waste time, right? We don't want people on the telephone that aren't serious, right? So we ask questions like, if you were able to start doing this today, could you commit in the next 3 hours, right, to starting this type of business, or to start your training on how to build your own digital offer? Could you commit in the next 3 hours? If people say no, we don't even book their call. We literally send them to a page that says, we're sorry, you don't qualify. If they say in the next 3 hours they can make it happen, then we know this is a serious person. Because look, maybe their schedule's completely free, but most of us have something to do within the next 3 hours, right? Even those of us that are not all that motivated probably have something to do. So if you tell me you can get on the phone at any point in time in the next 3 hours, we don't say at what time, at any point in time in the next 3 hours, you can make a phone call with us. We feel like, okay, that's one step closer to making sure that you're serious, that you're motivated, that this is a priority, right? So I think that especially when you're doing these book call offers where you're getting people on the phone, not only do you want to make sure they have money, that's just, everybody's always worried about trying to ask, do they have money? What I want to see is, are they motivated? Like, are they committed? Are they serious? Are they ready? Right? Because that's going to make it a much easier sales call than just, hey, do you have a lot of money? Okay, cool. Right? People with a lot of money don't part with it too quickly. Right? Like, good luck getting me on a telephone call and selling me something, like it's not about the money. It's about the motivation and the commitment behind it. I think that's the most important thing. One of the most important things we ask people.
How important is building your own online brand and having omnipresence? And what's the blueprint for doing this effectively?
I mean, first of all, I think omnipresence is, especially this day and age, is super important because people are so scattered. They're on Clubhouse, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on Google, they're on YouTube, they're everywhere. And so if you're not everywhere, you're either A, missing part of your audience, or B, you're losing the audience that you got, on whatever platform you are advertising on once they bounce to the next one, right? So I think omnipresence is key. I think in order to do that, especially for people who don't really know market, like not necessarily don't know marketing, but don't understand ad buying. I think those are two different things. And hire an agency, find an agency to do it. We have 6 that work on ours, and we're constantly comparing them and constantly changing them and constantly trying to find better ones, and people that make sure that when you go from YouTube to Facebook to this to that, you still see us, right? Like, you're still going to see my face. I think that's very important. And I think branding is important. I'm less of a brand oriented person and more of direct response. But at the same time, I think that they go hand in hand online, right? Because if you are the offer, right, it's much better to show your face than some logo, right? So you're building your brand, and it's that recognition that really gets the the lift in your advertising also, right? So the more recognizable your brand is, usually the less it costs you to generate leads and sales through your advertising, right? So they kind of go hand in hand.
So let's wrap up with this 2021 and going forward. We're moving towards a cookieless web eventually. We're moving towards privacy being a bigger issue and tracking being taken away. And we've been spoiled for the last 5 years when it comes to digital marketing and getting instant results and whatnot. Where do you see this space going? How are you looking towards adapting? And what do you think are the biggest opportunities in 2021 and beyond?
That's
A bunch of loaded questions there, but I feel
Yeah.
like you could answer them.
Yeah, no. I think technology is going to be key. I think the idea of working and using a lot of these third-party softwares and things, um, I think that is going to, I think that personally, I think that is going to be more difficult, right? Going forward, and the further forward we go, maybe the further more difficult it will be. I think it's going to be innovating and creating your own and operating your own stuff. For instance, we built our own CRM. So now that Facebook decided all this iOS 14 nonsense, within 24 hours, we were able to integrate our CRM with Facebook's event manager, pass all of our purchase data over. We get like an 8 out of 10 match score. And now all of our purchase data and all of our events fire better than they did before, right? If you're not able to create and adapt to all of these changes, then you're probably going to lose, right? And I think that it will create um, a easier playing field for those of us that are a little more committed and a little more capable of adapting, because it's going to be so much easier because there's going to be less competition. Facebook's algorithm currently is set up so that anybody can spend $1,000 a day and win, right? I mean, they auto optimize. I mean, you can spend $1,000 a day and win all day long.
It's the
Um,
purge. The purge
yeah,
is coming.
and that's basically what they're doing. Is that, well, not them in general, but because of all the tracking issues and things, that's not going to be possible anymore. And now it's going to require you as a business owner to learn and understand how to track your data, how to manage your data, and how to make decisions based on your own tracking and your own optimization versus what some third party is doing. And I think if you're capable of doing that, you're going to win really big.
Love it. Networking is important. So the people who want to network with you and they're not afraid to ask and they want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, probably the best way is on my Instagram account. It's just at Anthony Morrison. You can shoot me a DM in there and tell me, just put that you heard me on this podcast, so I can go find you. But yeah, Instagram is great. And then on Clubhouse, I'm in these Clubhouse rooms all the time, so just follow me on there. It's just the same, at Anthony Morrison.
Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Yep, absolutely, man. I enjoyed it.